Hello and welcome to the viewers of this video. This is the Orange Fan here, bringing you another entry for the episode Recap and Thoughts category. This video will be dedicated to the B segment of episode 38 of Codename Kids Next Door, Operation Hospital. We begin this segment with someone running through the grass in the middle of the night. This scene is shown as if we, the viewers, are seeing through the eyes of this individual. Eventually, this individual finds the Lincoln home on the other side of the street and proceeds to cross the street. Unfortunately, the individual realizes too late that they are about to be hit by an incoming truck. The next scene takes us to a hospital where the Sector V operatives arrive in a dramatic manner. Number one walks up to the front desk and introduces himself, his teammates, and explains that Kids Next Door Global Command have sent Sector V to act as security for the hospital. This is because the individual who was hit by the truck at the beginning of this segment is actually a Kids Next Door operative being treated at this hospital. However, over the course of the past 3 months, Kids Next Door operatives who have been sent to this hospital for treatment ended up having their brains scramblified. That's the way number one describes it anyway. However, it seems as though none of the hospital staff members were present when number one gave his speech. But a staff member does arrive soon and inquires number one about how she can help number one. Number one is about to give his speech again, but number three jumps up towards the front desk and starts to bang on the glass, demanding to know where this Kids Next Door operative is. The glass looks like it's cracking and could break at any moment, actually. Number five, however, is able to calm number three down, and number five politely inquires the staff member about if she could point them to the direction of the operating room that her dad, Dr. Lincoln, is performing surgery in. The staff member does show sympathy towards the Sector V operatives regarding the predicament that their comrade is in. However, she says that they can't barge into an operating room in the middle of surgery, and she also says that visiting hours are almost over. Visiting hours actually end right after she says this, and she closes up the front desk. Number one, however, thinks that they shouldn't stop their mission just because visiting hours have ended. So he thinks that they should split up into 3 groups to find the operating room. Number 2 and number 5 will form one group. Number 3 and number 4 will form another group, and number 1 will go off by himself. They're supposed to contact their teammates whenever one of them finds the operating room. So after the plan has been decided, the Sector V operatives proceed to begin with their plan. Little do any of the Sector V operatives realize, however, is that a shadowy figure is watching them, and it seems like this shadowy figure has plans of their own. The next scene shows number 2 and number 5 checking out the rooms within the hallway that they're currently in. However, the 2 of them hear staff members walking down this hallway, so they're forced to split up to hide. Number 5 ends up coming across her dad's office, and seeing that her dad is not in his office right now, she figures that he must still be performing surgery. But before number 5 can leave, the phone rings, and number 5 answers the phone. She recognizes the voice of the caller, but she also notices that the shadowy figure is locking the door to Dr. Lincoln's office to trap number 5 inside. Next up, we see number 3 and number 4 going down a different hallway. Number 4 actually doesn't know who this Kids Next Door operative is, while number 3 is determined to find the operating room. She grabs one of the staff members by the collar to demand an answer, and the staff member mentions the 5th floor. So number 3 proceeds to go to the elevator. Number 4 comments that number 3 must really like this Kids Next Door operative. Number 3 clarifies that she loves him, much to number 4's surprise. Next up, we see number 1 coming across a room filled with babies, and number 1 believes that the adults are performing experiments to make babies grow into adults faster. So number 1 is planning to liberate these babies. However, the shadowy figure knocks number 1 down a laundry chute before he can do anything. The next scene shows number 2 coming across number 3, and he inquires her about if she knows where number 5 is since he was separated from number 5. Number 3, however, is focused and determined to find the operating room. Soon enough, number 2 and number 3 do see Dr. Lincoln exiting the operating room, and they inquire him about how the surgery went. Dr. Lincoln can only solemnly say that they did everything that they could. Number 2, however, believes that he and number 3 can do something for the Kids Next Door operative, so number 2 and number 3 proceed to enter the operating room, but they don't see that the shadowy figure is close by and preparing to enter the operating room as well. And the shadowy figure also takes care of number 4, who is distracted while still processing what number 3 mentioned about loving this Kids Next Door operative. Inside the operating room, we see number 2 and number 3 using 2x4 technology to perform surgery, but we, the viewers, still don't see who this Kids Next Door operative is. After they finish, number 3 inquires if he, the operative, will be okay, and number 2 answers that he's better than okay thanks to their, number 2 and number 3's, efforts. However, they hear someone entering the operating room and they proceed to hide. The shadowy figure ends up being none other than Cree Lincoln, wearing a disguise thanks to battle-ready armor. Cree is also the one responsible for scramblifying the brains of the other Kids Next Door operatives who visited this hospital, so she's planning to do the same for this Kids Next Door operative. Number 3 jumps towards Cree, but Cree is able to defeat number 3, and number 2 for that matter, rather easily. She says she'll finish them off once she takes care of this operative. Cree pulls back the blanket, and she's surprised to see that the Kids Next Door operative is number 6, Bradley the skunk. But soon enough, we see that Bradley is now a cyborg with 2x4 technology cybernetics. Number 2 declares that Bradley has now become Robo Bradley. And Robo Bradley is actually able to easily defeat Cree thanks to his cybernetics. He finishes the fight with some stink bombs. That's how he finishes the fight, yes. So the next scene, next up we see the rest of the Sector V operatives rushing towards the operating room just after number 2, number 3, and number 6 exit the operating room. Though the other 3 Sector V operatives were able to break free from the predicaments that Cree put them in. Number 5 is trying to warn number 2 and number 3 about Cree being in the hospital, but they assure number 5 that they did come across Cree, but number 6 was able to number 6 was able to defeat Cree in battle and finish the fight rather easily. Number 4 wants to talk to number 3. Number 4 says he understands that number 3 loves this operative, but he has something to say as well. Number 3 seems to have an idea of what number 4 wants to say, and she eagerly awaits his answer. Number 4 is about to say what he wants to say, but he smells a rather bad scent, and he comments about number 3, that number 3 smells, and naturally this surprises number 3, but not in a good way. Soon enough, though, number 4 sees number 6 and remembers Bradley the skunk. Number 1 explains that, yes, number 6 was the Kids Next Door operative. Number 6 was on a mission to investigate what Cree was planning, but being hit by a truck kind of slowed down that mission. But number 1 also commented that number 6 found a way to complete his mission even with that complication. Number 4 realizes that number 3's comments about loving the kids next door operative was in reference to how number 3 still views Bradley as like a son to her. Yes, she still views Bradley as if he were her son. And number 4 does act rather dismissive towards Bradley, actually. But number 3 realizes that number 4's earlier comments about her smell was about the smell from Bradley. So she inquires number 4 about what it was he really wanted to say. Number 4's response is her shoelaces were untied. Number 3 does not believe this, even though number 4 keeps insisting that is what he wanted to say. So the Sector V operatives and number 6 leave the hospital, and Dr. Lincoln returns into the operating room. He greets Cree when he sees her, but then he notices that Cree smells thanks to the stink bombs that Robo Bradley used. So Dr. Lincoln thinks that they're going to have to operate and remove Cree's sweat glands, and the segment ends with Cree trying to tell her dad that the kids next door were responsible for this smell. So this segment stands out for marking the return of number 6, Bradley the Skunk, who first appeared in Season 1's Operation Camp. I did mention before that Tom Warburton did acknowledge in one of his blog posts that he originally didn't expect Bradley to return again for more appearances beyond his initial appearance, but yep, Bradley did end up returning, and now he's a cyborg, actually. In a different blog post, Tom Warburton also revealed that this segment was actually inspired by a dream. This dream actually plays out the same way as the opening scene, the one where Bradley is making his way towards the Lincoln home. So yeah, he was thinking about ideas to share with the rest of the crew and staff members of the show, and when he fell asleep, he had a dream which played out like that opening scene. So yes, that was the inspiration for this scene, and probably the return of Bradley as well. And I might as well mention this now. Number 6 does return in a later entry in Season 6. Yes, there's a Season 6 entry where Robo Bradley plays a fairly major role. So we'll be sure to talk about that entry once we reach that particular recap and thoughts video. Otherwise, this segment also reveals a bit more about the Lincoln family. More specifically, we find out that Mr. Lincoln, number 5 and Cree's dad, is actually a medical doctor. That's his profession, so that's why he's also known as Dr. Lincoln. And this is probably meant to be another reference to the character Cliff Huxtable, because yes, Dr. Lincoln does seem to be a reference to the character Cliff Huxtable, so the medical doctor profession adds to that reference. And while I'm thinking about it, there is actually a later segment that actually reveals what Dr. Lincoln's profession was before he became a doctor. So we'll be sure to cover that particular segment once we reach that segment's recap and thoughts video. Otherwise, yes, Cree appeared in this segment as well, and we find out that she's been scramblifying the brains of kids next door operatives that visit her dad's hospital, or the hospital that her dad works at anyway. And yes, we actually do see the weapon that she intended to use to scramblify brains, and yes, it definitely adds to nightmare fuel, to say the least. Another notable detail is a brief scene with number 1, or the scene where number 1 sees babies in a room and he starts to have a conspiracy theory about babies in the hospital. This actually does carry over into a later entry. Yes, there's a later entry where, in a later entry, they actually touch up on that detail of number 1 having conspiracy theories about babies in hospitals. That's actually the main focus of this later entry. So yes, that could be seen as foreshadowing for that later entry. But yes, number 1 was inspired by this scene where he sees the baby. So yes, that scene actually does end up coming back in a bigger way in a later entry. So, of course, we'll be sure to talk about that entry in that entry's recap and thoughts video. So, otherwise, yes, I believe that's about it for this particular entry. So, to summarize, Bradley made his return since season 1, and he will return again in a later entry at the end of the series, in the last season of the series, and Bradley is now a cyborg. We also get to see more of what Kree does as a teen ninja, and we also do get to see Dr. Lincoln's profession as a medical doctor, and a later entry will reveal what he did before he became a medical doctor. And yes, the last summarized detail is number one's conspiracy theories in this segment do come back in a later entry. So otherwise, yes, I believe that's about it for this particular entry. So as of this video, we've now discussed the B segment of episode 38 of Codename Kids Next Door on this channel. Take care, and until next time.